SpongeKicks here. I hope my microphone doesn't sound too bad because unfortunately the stand broke, so until I get a new one in the mail, I'm going to have to hold the microphone in my hand, so hopefully that doesn't cause any disturbance in the sound or anything. But anyway, SpongeKicks here, continuing my Mario Party review series. Today I'm going to talk about Mario Party Island Tour, the third handheld entry and the first entry to be on the Nintendo 3DS. Sadly, the game does not utilize the 3DS's 3D slider very well at all, but then again, barely any 3DS game bothered utilizing it properly. There were only like a few 3DS games where the 3D actually looked good, like Zelda Ocarina of Time, Star Fox 64 3D, Super Mario 3D Land, but barely any games on 3DS bothered using it, and they all look terrible with the 3D depth on. Maybe Switch 2 will someday give us VR support, and then maybe we can finally get a real 3D Mario Party. So this was the second game to be released by ND Cube, and as I said in my last review, ND Cube's first batch of Mario Party games were very divisive for drastically straying away from the classic Mario Party formula. Mario Party Island Tour is not much different in that regard, but it's arguably even more drastic with the changes compared to Mario Party 9. Mario Party Island Tour is lacking in a lot of modes and features compared to past entries. There's even minigames and a board map that are inaccessible unless you have another player with another 3DS to play with. And that is a real shame to exclude features just because you don't have another console or a friend to play with. That's ridiculous. So I won't be able to go over every single minigame or board map in this review because of those restrictions. So we got the usual things like party mode and minigame mode, along with a single player challenge mode called Bowser's Tower, along with a collection mode. The collection mode has the most underwhelming collectibles out of the entire series thus far. We save up our party points from playing minigames and board maps in exchange for memory bubbles that do absolutely nothing but serve as sound test modes. So they let us listen to character voice clips and the music, and I don't know why you'd want to even bother because this game has really bland music. I keep saying this with every entry, but the music keeps getting more bland with each entry, and God, the music here is even more forgettable than the one in Mario Party 9. Remember when Mario Party DS actually let us unlock collectible 3D models of the characters instead? So Bowser's Tower is a real frustrating and brutal single-player challenge that requires us to clear 30 floors of a giant tower. Each floor has one of two minigames that we can choose to play with. There are checkpoints that are created every 5 floors, and if we lose a single minigame, we gotta start all the way back from the previous checkpoint, and it takes forever due to many of these minigames requiring dumb luck. The CPU have brutal difficulty. The only plus side to this mode is that it has some of the best boss minigames in the series thus far. I did not care for the boss minigames in Mario Party DS or Mario Party 9, but they're actually pretty good in this one overall. They're strictly single-player boss fights instead of multiplayer battles that take dumb luck to win. Our ultimate prize for beating the story mode is that we get to unlock Bowser Jr. as a playable character for the first time. The roster in this game is pretty weak overall. It's surprisingly slightly better than Mario Party DS, but only by 2 characters. You still got the regulars that have been there since Mario Party 3, like Mario, Luigi, Peach, Daisy, Wario, Waluigi, and Yoshi. Toad and Boo from Mario Party 5 are still here, but all the other characters have been scrapped, and Bowser Jr. is the only new character in this game. I wish I could recommend skipping Bowser's Tower because it's mostly forgettable and very frustrating, but it's only worth going through if you want to unlock all the boss minigames, which are worth playing. And it's too bad that you'll likely have to keep starting over with all these unskippable lengthy cutscenes, as the characters have to keep constantly climbing these steps every time they succeed in a room. Yeah, it gets very tiring. It makes you wish you could just skip all this stuff. The mode wouldn't be so bad if you could skip all this stuff, and if it had better checkpoints. The party mode is very different. Each board map has very different ways of progressing and playing, unlike most games where they rely on collecting the most stars or mini stars. So only one of these board maps actually has the mini stars, so it's the only level that actually has items you need to collect in order to win. I wish I could like these board maps, for some of them have really neat designs and layouts, and some of them have really cool ideas, but overall their execution just sucks out all the fun that it should have had. This entry ditches the car gameplay from the previous one, surprisingly. So, Perilous Palace Path is a map I almost thought I was going to like at first, because it starts off kind of seeming like a really fun idea. It's a one-way race to the palace at the end of this map. It has these split paths along the way. There's something so cool about a Mario Party board map where instead of collecting the most stars or coins to win, you just gotta make it to the finish first. As we collect these power-ups that will give us a boost, along with items that can sabotage other players. But there's just so much about the execution that ruins this. So after every player's turn, we play a minigame for a chance to win lucky dice blocks to boost our dice rolls. If we land on a versus space, we get to compete to take turns in picking one of 3 items, and a lot of these items are just way too overpowered, so depending on the order of who won in which rank, they get to pick the items first, and all the items are overpowered. So yeah, it really feels lame when you're forced to pick an item, then you know the CPU is just going to pick an item where no matter what you do, you're screwed, because they're going to steal your items, or they're going to swap places with you. It's so annoying. I don't like how it basically just gives free handouts to people who are basically losing, and it basically gives them a chance to basically cheat the game. I don't like the way this was handled. There's way too many annoying items and holdups that take away what fun there is to be had with this. There are cases where someone can be dead last through the majority of the game, but then they happen to get the Kamek item, which randomly shuffles everyone's places around. It is so unfair, and it's so easy for anyone to get not only one, but multiple copies of this item, and I just don't like it. I really wish a lot of these items were excluded. I wish it just focused on the ones that gave us like a few extra dice blocks, or a few extra spaces going forward, or maybe an item that sends players a few spaces back or makes them lose a turn. Stuff like that wouldn't be so bad, but the way that these drastically alter the game for the worse is so annoying. And then right when you think you finally won, someone makes it to the end, but then all of a sudden there's a roadblock when a Womp appears and you have to beat him in a dice rolling minigame in order to win. It's terrible. I am just thankful that there isn't a story mode which forces us to win every board map, or this might have gone down as the worst entry in the franchise. Many of these board maps feel so empty without coins or stars or anything to collect for that matter. Bonsai Bill's Mad Mountain is one of my least favorite maps in the game. It's the shortest map in the game, and it can either be cleared the quickest or it can take the longest to beat depending on your luck. The goal is to get to the castle on top of a cliff, as we try not to land on the Bonsai Bill with our dice block, or he'll ram any players in the way back to start. And considering how lengthy it can get to get all the way to the top, yeah, that's really annoying. So we can try landing on a dice number to hide inside of these caves, which will prevent us from getting blasted by the Bonsai Bill in case he gets summoned. And every 3 turns, a minigame triggers, which grants first, second, and third place winners a number of spaces to move forward, with first place getting to move 5 spaces. It's hard to get excited with these maps when you know that no matter how well you're going to end up doing, the game will just be rigged to have you lose in the end. It's like that. No matter how many times I play these board maps, I'm doing so well at one point, and then I just can't stay happy because I know something's going to screw things over, and I don't recall ever winning any of these board maps. It's so rigged. Starcross Skyway is the closest we get to a map from Mario Party 9, minus the vehicles. It's basically a Mario Party 9 map, but we're running on foot. I do admit that I kind of wish it had that option in Mario Party 9. I did mention how it would have been cool if it had a separate mode where you got to run around on foot, and then there's the mode where you're forced to take turns driving the vehicle. And so it is cool to see that they tried that with this one, but in execution, they ruined it. So each player races to the goal while trying to collect the most mini stars on the map, and there are situations where the mini stars can rotate at a certain spot, and so it can make you get either more mini stars or lose more mini stars, depending on the circumstances, basically. So we can earn mini stars in mini games every 3 turns, or by landing on a versus space to trigger a minigame. But it barely rewards us with any mini stars. It only rewards first place with 3 measly mini stars, second place with 2, then third place with just 1, and you really don't get much by winning mini games in this. It really feels like the mini games shouldn't have been here, when the real way to win is by collecting the ones on the map, and I don't feel like there's enough on the map scattered around to give people a chance. I wish they actually had spaces where you land on them and you actually get mini stars, but no, you have to keep going to these roulette areas to collect the stars, and it's so annoying. Rocket Road is such a tease in so many ways. It's a race through space to try to reach Rosalina at the end. Again, what a tease. I made a big deal in the last game over why wasn't Rosalina playable in that one. And so instead, she actually makes an appearance in this one, unlike Mario Party 9, where they make so many references in Mario Galaxy, but they didn't have the nerve to have Rosalina show up. So they finally have her show up in this one, and she's treated like a trophy girl. It's a whole race of, oh, you see her in the distance? Try to make it to her. Oh, you wish she was playable? Tough luck, nerds. So yeah, it's just pathetic. I don't like the way they tease the fans like that. They knew people were begging Nintendo for Rosalina to be playable in the Mario Party series, and luckily it wouldn't be too much longer for the following game she was finally made playable in Mario Party 10. So yeah, the map almost looks like a lot of fun. As we fly around on these rockets, we need to collect these thrusters by winning minigames or landing on spaces. We can equip up to 1 to 4 thrusters at once, and they allow us an extra dice roll. We can store up to use 5 dice blocks in one turn for a big burst of speed. However, the map is way too short, and it can get cleared within 30 spaces just about. I really wish it was a lot longer. Like, I feel like this should have been like a 100 space map, or at least a 50 space map maybe. I feel like 30 is just way too short. The worst part is that when the thrusters are equipped, there's a chance of rolling a 0, which means that you wasted not only your turn, but you wasted all of those thrusters that you collected. And so, yeah, that's a real big middle finger to those who were doing so well. They were winning all these mini games, landing on all these lucky spaces, and then it just gives you a big middle finger by saying, oh, you used all your items at once. Tough luck. So, yeah, I really hated this map. I really wanted to like it, though. It's a gorgeous looking map, but the gameplay just ruins it. Shy Guys Shuffled City, I have no idea what happens in this one. This is the one map I told you about where you cannot play it unless you're connected with another player on another 3DS. So yeah, thanks a lot, game. Thanks a lot. It was so great to be able to buy this game years ago and then not be able to fully access the game just because I don't have another like $300 spent on another 3DS or something. Nor do I have someone to actually play it. Because back then when I was in school, I was the only kid who actually cared about playing Nintendo games. Everyone else wanted to play Xbox or PlayStation, and I was like the only guy who bothered playing Nintendo in my school, so yeah, thanks for nothing, Nintendo. So, Kamek's Carpet Ride is another fun-looking idea, but once again, horribly executed. It's kind of cool how we ride around on flying magic carpets, though, but... So we start off with a deck of 3 cards with limited space movements, from things like 1 to 3, or 4 to 6, and stuff like that, and so... each turn, we pick a card to roll a dice based on the card on the numbers in order to move forward, and we need to try to land on these spaces that have keys on them in order to reach the goal. So, a board game where we move around with numbered cards. Where have I seen this before? So this is almost a fun idea, but what ruins it is how short it is, not to mention how in order to open the gates, we have to land directly on the spaces with the keys on them, and since this is a map where we get random cards each turn, there are many chances where we'll just keep getting a number of turns where when we get another card in our deck, it's not the one that we need. It will go over the number needed on the space. So when you exceed the number needed to land on that space, it forces you to bounce off the wall, and then you start moving in reverse based on how many numbers are left on your dice roll. And yeah, it really punishes players who are so close to the finish, those who manage to beat everyone to the finish, and then it really punishes them by not rewarding them with small enough cards. And it takes a lot of dumb luck to win this one, and yeah, I really don't like it. Bowser's Peculiar Peak is once again another neat idea, but with terrible setbacks. The goal is to try rolling the smallest dice rolls for Bowser as he waits at the end of the map, and he claims that the first one to reach him will lose the game, and the winner will be whoever was furthest away from him. Now that's kind of a cool idea, a board map where whoever gets to the end first is the loser, so it really prevents you from wanting to hit height dice rolls. That's actually kind of a fun topsy-turvy way of playing a board game. So after every player has rolled their dice, Bowser forces us to play a mini-game, where the losers will get cursed dice blocks, which will force them to roll more or higher dice numbers, while the winner will get no extra dice blocks, and they just get one measly roll of the dice, so it reduces their chances of getting a higher dice block. So I love the idea of trying not to reach the goal first, and if someone else reaches it, they lose. It's a pretty funny idea, but I think what ruins it, though, is it goes against its word. Bowser originally said that whoever reaches the goal first loses. But no, it doesn't end when someone reaches the goal. Instead, he offers them a challenge where they're forced to basically compete in a dice rolling minigame where they have to roll a dice higher than Bowser, otherwise you'll knock them out of the game, and the game ends. I would have rather the game just ended as soon as someone reached the goal, instead of lying to everyone that, oh, there's still a challenge that can possibly drag the game on longer if they succeed. I had the CPU reach the goal, and then as soon as I saw that minigame pop up, I'm like, are you kidding me? Luckily, the CPU lost anyways and the game ended, but still, the thought that you have like extra chances of the character making it to the goal and they manage to survive and it just drags the game on longer when you're ready for it to end already, that is just really annoying. I don't like it when games give your hopes up like that. So congratulations, Mario Party 4, you no longer have the worst collection of board maps in the series. Mario Party 4 may have had very flat and boring looking board maps, but at least there was some fun to be had with them, racing around to collect the coins and stars, along with acquiring some of the rare items. There were plenty of events to shake things up. The maps in Island Tour are very unique and fun looking, but this was the most miserable time I've had playing these board maps. And I thought the board maps from Mario Party 9 were bad, but they were technically better looking in comparison. I wouldn't say they were fun though, but they were less miserable than whatever was going on in Island Tour. So while I think the board maps in this game are absolutely horrible, there is no reason to want to come back and revisit the party mode. I cannot say the same for the mini-games actually. The mini-games are mostly pretty good and refreshing compared to seeing the same rehashed mini-game ideas from past games. A lot of these are pretty original. So this is the first handheld entry to not require using the D-pad controls for moving our characters, though it is still an option if you prefer that. We can use the 3DS's circle pad, which was used for most minigames in this, and it makes moving our characters around feel a lot more comfortable. We still got the touchscreen control minigames like in Mario Party DS. There are a few minigames that are terrible though, and they're mainly the ones that require using the 3DS's gyro controls. So if people thought motion controls on the Wii, Wii U, or Switch were terrible, oh man, they are nothing compared to how unbearable motion controls were on the 3DS. There was just no good way of calibrating this stuff. It was faulty as hell. It did not match your movements at all. And sometimes it would like start automatically steering in directions you're not even aiming for and there's no way to get out of it. It'll just keep tilting in one direction. And that messed me up in many games that required gyro controls, like Mario and Luigi Dream Team, and the Mario and Sonic Olympic crossover games on 3DS. I also don't think that motion controls work on a handheld console where the screen is part of the controller. Motion controls work better when you can move a controller that doesn't move the screen as well. It can be really hard to see what's going on the screen when you're forced to control the screen as well at the same time. So many of these motion-controlled minigames were flat out unplayable and uncooperative in this game, but most of the other minigames were pretty decent. Unfortunately, there are no 2 vs 2, 1 vs 3, or dual minigames in this entry. Yeah, this is probably the first entry in the series to not have 1 vs 3 minigames. Most of the minigames are 4-player, and they don't give us the options to reduce the players to 2 or 3, like in Mario Party 9, so that's kind of a shame that it, once again, forces us to play with nothing but 4 players, just like most past entries. The 4-player minigames were renamed to General Minigames for some reason, and they take up a majority of the minigames in this. There's a huge amount of minigames in this, surprisingly, for a handheld entry. There's like 80 minigames, and that's quite shocking, especially for a handheld entry. Most past entries had something between like 65 to 70 minigames. So starting off with the general minigames, Claiming the Cube has us running around a cube with Super Mario Galaxy styled controls as we have to ground pound on these panels once they glow white. We can pound up to 4 panels at once if we ground pound on the center of a side when all the panels are white at once. Rope a Slope has the player sliding down a rope as we press the A button to jump over branches. Tragic Carpet Ride has us dodging those dark matter eaters from Mario Galaxy 2 as we try avoiding falling down into the holes they make. Stretch 1 has us going 2 rounds of pulling back on a cart with a slingshot as we hold down on the circle pad, and we try preventing ourselves from going too far off the cliff, but we want to try to make it as far as we can without falling off the cliff in order to get more points. I think this would have been better off if it was just 1 round of this instead of 2. Grid is Good is a dumb luck game where we have to go 3 rounds of placing tiles on the touchscreen in order to try getting the most points, while hoping that the opponents don't pick the same numbers as we did or they'll get cancelled out. More like Grid is bad if you ask me. Color Me Fast has us going 3 rounds of trying to color in the most fruit drawings with the touchscreen, fun for those who like to color or do art. Musical Snare has us rolling around on bumper balls to try to collect the most music notes to make our balls bigger, but we have to tilt the 3DS to roll around, so this isn't the worst of the minigames that use gyro controls, but it would have been so much better if we could use the circle pad or even a flick with the touchscreen instead. Buzz-a-Fuzzy is a bad gyro-controlled game where we go 3 rounds of aiming by moving the 3DS and shooting the most fuzzies, with 1 shot by holding down and releasing the circle pad. This would have worked so much better by aiming with the circle pad and then shooting with another button instead. I also wish it played more like an unlimited shooter where we get bonus points for shooting multiple fuzzies in 1 shot, and we go under a time limit. I don't like the way they handled this, where you get only 3 shots across 3 rounds. We get 1 shot across 3 rounds. Yeah, it's not fun. And the motion controls make it even worse. Cannonball has us quickly rotating the circle pad to wind up our cannons to fire our players the furthest. Goomba to Maneuver is a fun challenge where we lead a parade of Goombas with the circle pad while trying to keep the Goombas away from the spiky plants. Whoever has the most Goombas by the end wins. Kebab and Weave is a game of dodging the spiked pillars that come shooting out. Tap Dash is a 3-round race of needing to touch the icon that matches the enemies on the top screen. Tank-a-Lot is basically a clone of Mario Party 2's Shell Shocked, except instead of being elimination-based, the winner goes to whoever shot the most opponents 3 times. So if a player is hit, they will respawn after a delay. Xylophone Home is a touchscreen rhythm minigame as we touch the xylophones as soon as the music notes bounce off of them. Mild Gunman is a series of quick draw games where we need to press the random button prompts. Spin the Bubble requires us to rotate these capsules to have the creatures inside of them match the rotation shown on the bottom image. Too bad it's a terrible motion controlled game. This actually does kind of sound like a fun idea, but the motion controls, they're so unresponsive. They keep moving on their own. It's impossible to get it to stop. So yeah, it would have worked so much better with circle pad or even touchscreen rotation. Rat-a-tat Flat is a race to ground pound on the most mice. Tile Savvy has us racing to solve 3 short and simple puzzles with the touchscreen. Normally I hate slide puzzles, but luckily these are short and easy ones. Hide and Splat has us running around and trying to avoid getting crushed by these block enemies. Slow Glide has us tilting the 3DS up and down to steer our gliders up and down to pop the most balloons. So it's one of the only few easy gyro minigames where it's really impossible to mess up the controls on this one since you don't have to worry about swerving left or right. It's real easy to tilt up and down. Sub Trouble is a fun challenge as we tilt up and down on the circle pad to steer our submarines through very narrow caves. Luckily, getting hit will not eliminate you, but it will slow you down. Garden of Eden is a dumb luck game of picking a flower to water and hoping it's not a piranha plant. Peepa is one of the most unresponsive gyro minigames in this whole game, as we're supposed to shine our flashlights on the Peepas, but the controls are impossible to work with. They keep jerking in random directions that we're not even aiming for. Once again, it should have used circle pad controls. Puzzle Pronto has us needing to solve 3 puzzles on the touchscreen. Truckin' and Cluckin' has oddly nothing to do with trucking, but we do need to chase a lot of chickens and hold on to them the longest in order for them to drop the most eggs that we can collect. So we can also tackle other players to steal their chickens, and gold chickens have eggs that are worth the most points. Color Correction is a turf war as we move around to light up the most panels with our own colors. Get Real has us advancing and reversing through frames on a film in order to find the still frame that matches a certain image. It is cool how we progress by rotating the circle pad either clockwise for forward or counterclockwise for reverse, just like we're actually going through an actual film reel. Top This has us racing across 3 rounds to drag the most toppings onto a cake with the touchscreen. Slip and Slip feels like a spin-off to Pushy Penguins from Mario Party 5, but we're on a more slippery body of ice that tilts around as we try staying on while avoiding the sliding penguins. Pachinko Wizard is another dumb luck elimination game of picking a spot by pressing a matching button, as we hope that Lakitu Spinies don't go down and hit us, and it really drags on. No Traction Action is yet another Figure Zero racetrack. We've seen this done to death in past games, many games that revolve winning a race by driving around this zero-figure racetrack, but at least this one has a different perspective to visually spice it up, along with making it a bit more of a challenge. Blown Hover is a tricky race as we try avoiding these panels that come flying at us by either dodging them left or right or jumping. Slow G looks like your typical vertical platforming race. We've seen these in quite a number of Mario Party games, but what makes this one different is how we have very low gravity, which makes our jumps higher and floatier. Spin and Barret is a slow and boring dumb luck game as we pick a panel to stand on. One player spins a wheel with the touchscreen to try to get the other players eliminated until the last player is standing. Fisty Clouds is basically Lava Tile Isle from Mario Party 2, except we're on floating blocky platforms that move around, so we try punching the other opponents off while trying to stay on the platforms. Starring Artist has us using the touchscreen to draw in these lines in order to match the constellations on the top screen. Pokey Corral is a tricky but fun challenge as we run around to try avoiding the Pokies, as we try also avoiding being pulled off of the cliff by the shifting sands. Hair Today is a cute and fun challenge of running around trying to catch the most bunnies and returning them into their pens, and we get more points if we catch the golden bunnies. Great Bars of Fire has us avoiding fire bars by jumping or ducking. Deck Hunt has us skateboarding to collect coins, but we will lose 3 coins every time we get hit. Paddle Skedaddle has us stroking down on the touchscreen from the left or right side in order to canoe to the finish. Fuel Me Once has us trying to time the A button at the right time in order to fuel our rocket enough to reach a platform worth the most points. Get Along Goombas has us drawing circles with the touchscreen to make a big lasso. We stroke upwards in order to try wrangling the most Goombas. Sheepers Keepers is 3 rounds of button mashing randomly called button prompts in order to try reeling in the most cheap. I really think this would have worked better as a 1-round minigame instead of needing 3 needless rounds. Drive for Show has us stroking the touchscreen in different directions in order to swing these golf balls into these targets to try to get the most points. Hop Till You Drop is a platform peril clone as we race to the finish by hopping on these platforms and conveyor belts. Helter Shelter is a dumb luck game of grabbing oysters and hoping they have the most pearls. It goes on way longer than it needs to. Meteor Melee is just a more sluggish clone of Coney Island from Mario Party 5, except we're catching stars while dodging meteors. Bumper Thumper is a fun take on bumper balls from the original Mario Party, except we have to bump opponents by flicking the circle pad into different directions for short thrusts to come out of our rocket vehicles as we try breaking the walls to bump our opponents off of the arena. Horror Harriers is a game of running around to avoid bumping into the Peepas. Cheap Diamonds is just a clone of that tiring memory match game from Mario Party 9 called Plundered Ground. So Big Berthas end up eating all these gems, they swim around and we have to pick which one ate the most gems. So this one goes on way too long. It should have just been a 1-round game. At least the scoring system in this one is more fitting compared to the one from Mario Party 9. Slipknot is another decent idea ruined by motion controls, so we're supposed to steer our characters to prevent them from falling off of a literal water slide. It should have used the circle pad or touchscreen controls instead. Trounce and Bounce is an elimination reimagining of that skydiving minigame from Mario Party DS, as we try diving onto these mushrooms to move on to the next round, but we're eliminated if we hit the ground. The CPU are relentless as they'll keep trying to bump into you. Mad Ladders has us moving all around to climb up these ladders, as we need to hop from ladders left to right in order to dodge the spikes attacks. Squish You Are Here has us trying to squeeze between these gaps to try avoiding being crushed by metal pillars. Go With The Flow is a tricky race as we try transferring the most penguins across this cold water by sliding over the ice and trying not to fall into the water. Pool Buoy has us stroking the touchscreen in different directions to roll our characters towards the buoys that Lakitu throws in order to get the most points. Amp My Style has us trying to avoid the Amp's tricky narrow attacks. Magmathon is a platforming race that requires quickly pressing the random buttons as they appear on the platforms. Shrub Hubbub has us using the touchscreen to trim these hedges by drawing the line shown on screen. Quickest Cricket is a pretty fun one that has us holding down on the circle pad and releasing it once it's charged up enough in order to fling our crickets towards the finish line while dodging obstacles and timing things right. Diamond a Dozen has us needing to observe tunnels with gems in them, and we need to jump down the holes that we think has the most treasure. Flip Out has us pressing the A button multiple times in order to hop across these panels to reach the goal, but there are these tricky panels with faces on them that will try flipping us off of the course. Bob-omb a Plum has the players kicking bob-ombs towards the other players' islands to try bombing them out of the game. Gyro for the Gold has us tilting the 3DS to roll a ball to the finish. It's not the worst gyro game, I mean it is functional, but once again, it could have been so much better with circle pad or touchscreen controls. Point and Shoot is another faulty gyro game where we need to find requested baddies by tilting our 3DS and pressing the A button to take a picture of the characters once we find them. Match Faker is a real fun idea where we have to make up these short note initials or drawings on the touchscreen in order to try helping us memorize the orders of the characters on the touchscreen. So once the timer goes out, the panels are hidden as we try answering where 3 of these characters are hidden, and we have to look at our notes for reference. It's a pretty fun challenge. You gotta act really fast though, because it doesn't give you much time to take notes. Skyd and Seek is a very similar minigame to the last one. It's another fun note-taking game as we try counting how many Paragoombas or Paratroopers are hiding in the clouds. And we gotta pay attention for the ones that end up leaving the clouds. So, I always played this by drawing a big G for Goomba and with a big K next to it for Koopa. And then I'd add a tally under the G or the K, depending on how many Koopas or Goombas fly in. And then I slash out one of those marks when one of them leaves. And so in the end, I just count how many lines are not slashed out, and then I feel like that's the easiest way to play this minigame. But there's so many different approaches that players might try to play this in their own way. But yeah, it's a really fun idea though. I love the idea of a minigame where you gotta take notes to win. It's more fun than all those old games where you gotta write down a password and use it like many levels later or something. Because at least this is one where you're doing it immediately and not later. That, and you don't have to worry, unlike old games on N64 or NES where you had to write it down on a piece of paper, at least on this, you have it right there on your touchscreen, so that's what makes this another fun minigame idea. I unfortunately was not able to play the microphone minigame called Utter Nonsense, where it requires more than one player along with multiple 3DS consoles, but there is a single-player version of this called the Choicest Voice, which I'll get to in a bit. Onto the boss minigames. Goomba Takedown Tower has us needing to avoid the Goombas and spiky nuts, as we pick up apples and chuck them at the Goomba Tower to knock it over, followed by lining up the Goombas to knock them all out by throwing more apples at them. Chain Chomp's Lava Lunge is a short and simple challenge of luring a Goomba to ground pound on these square grids in order to try burning the Chomp into lava. Mr. Blizzard's Snow Slalom has us stroking the touchscreen to roll a snowball over tokens to increase its size to make a bigger impact when it reaches the other side to ram Mr. Blizzard. King Bob-omb's Court of Chaos is a boring game of using the touchscreen to line up a path by sliding panels across the touchscreen in order to line them up and guide bombs on a pathway to a cannon before the bomb explodes on us. Dry Bowser's Bone Bonk requires us to put in these button inputs as fast as we can to counter Bowser's bone throwing attacks. Bowser Sky Shuffle is a dumb game of needing to fire cannons at Bowser with the gyro tilting along with the A button to shoot. When we run out of ammo, we need to switch over to these segments where we gotta run around and hit these winged dice blocks for more cannonballs while dodging Bowser's flame attacks. It's best to shoot Bowser only when he stops moving to laugh at us, but once again, I feel like the gyro controls felt totally pointless. This is not a very fun final boss fight. It's not hard though, it's just more annoying than anything. So while not all of them are great, I mean there's at least 2 of them that are kind of disappointing, but I overall really did enjoy the boss mini games this time around. It's too bad that they're exclusive to that disappointing tower mode, but the King Bob-omb and Final Bowser fight left a lot to be desired, but the rest were pretty fun. Unlike most Mario Party games that usually have just like one puzzle game, this one has 3 brand new puzzle games. 3 House has us rotating a block of 4 items as we tried to line up 3 or more items to clear them out. And over time, we can earn special POW blocks where pressing the R button allows us to clear out multiple items at once. I remembered putting most of my hours into this minigame alone when visiting this game back then. So this one is played with the D-pad as we rotate the panels with the A or B button. Emergency Hexit is another fun puzzle game played entirely with touchscreen controls as we horizontally or diagonally drag these matching hexagon tiles next to each other to try clearing them out to see how far we can go before time runs out. If we find Koopa shells, we can slide them over to the very left or right of the screen for our players to kick them around to knock out multiple hexagons at once. Once again, it's a very fun minigame. Star Turn is arguably the weakest of the 3 puzzle games. It's not bad though, just not as fun. The goal is to rotate these lines made of tiny stars in order to try caging in these bigger stars. Finally, there's the Extras minigames. Sadly, I will not be able to go over Kagoomba or Sinking Feeling, which require the augmented reality function, where back when people first bought their 3DS, we got these little cards that we could aim the 3DS's camera at, and they could trigger these special 3D models or minigames to appear out of our 3DS's camera, giving an illusion of playing video games in the real world. So Kagoomba was a shooting game where Goombas would spawn out on our kitchen table or wherever we were playing. We have to try shooting them down. Sinking Feeling has a giant tower with lava at the bottom growing out of our table, and so we're playing a minigame where we're trying to climb, to control our characters to climb to the top of the tower while trying not to fall into the rising lava below. I remember this one being a very headache-inducing minigame because the tower was constantly like wobbling on its own when you slightly move the camera, and so yeah, it got very nauseating. So the Choices voice, it's a funny idea but incredibly challenging and kind of flawed, as we're forced to use the 3DS microphone to try mimicking the voice clips of the other characters. So I can imagine this being very fun with a group of friends as they're just laughing at how bad their impressions are, and it might even be fun for those who actually are good at doing voice impressions. So I am terrible at impersonating characters. I unfairly was forced to try mimicking Princess Peach and Daisy's voices, and oh, I was awful at that. I got like 2 out of 5 votes from the judges, and so the only one I did a slightly decent job at was mimicking Luigi. I got 4 out of 5 stars for that.
It's Luigi time. It's a Luigi time.
So not only is the 3DS microphone quality terrible, but it made my voice come out too loud and crackling, but the minigame did a terrible job at recording my audio as well. I spoke right on cue, yet it cut off the first few and last seconds, so it made my voice recording incomplete, and I don't know why, but yeah, it really ruins it when it cuts off those few seconds before and after. Oh boy, where do I put this whole game on the tier list? Mario Party Island Tour is overall a very mixed game. It's more bad than good, honestly. It has very lackluster rewards, the worst board maps in the series thus far. It has a frustrating single-player challenge mode, terrible motion-controlled mini-games. There's an entire board map that single players cannot play unless they have friends with more 3DSs to play it. That is stupid. So I can't think of any other Mario Party game where the board maps were locked out, except for maybe Mario Party Advance, but meanwhile, it does have some very fun minigames, though, including the improved boss minigames. It has 2 very fun puzzle minigames. So overall, yeah, this is a very mixed entry. It has more things holding it back, to be honest, but some of the minigames are just too much fun to fully hate this game. I'm just going to put it between Mario Party 7 and Mario Party Advance on the C tier. I think it has better minigames than Mario Party Advance and Mario Party 7, but I'll say that Mario Party 7 is better for having better board maps and less underwhelming unlockables. I can't believe I actually liked Island Tour more than Mario Party 9, but it was really the minigames that made the final decision, especially the 2 puzzle minigames. Those 2 puzzle games alone make me prefer Island Tour over anything that Mario Party 9 has to offer. I still never see myself going back to playing Party Mode or Bowser's Tower Mode. I only see myself going back to play maybe the boss minigames and the puzzle minigames, a few of the general minigames, but otherwise, yeah, this is not the best entry in the series, but I wouldn't call it the absolute worst either. So join me next time where I look at what I'm surprised isn't the lowest selling entry in the series, considering how the Wii U is always joked on for being that console that no one ever bought, and then that always makes me feel uncomfortable because I was one who was like ripped and ready to buy it day one, you know. Everyone jokes about how terrible the Wii U was, and then I'm just sitting there going, I thought the Wii U was a great console. But so next time I'm going to look at Mario Party 10, the first HD entry in the series, the last entry to use Wii remotes, and the only entry to use the Wii U gamepad. It's also the last entry to have a number in the title, so after this there was no Mario Party 11 because Nintendo totally rebooted the series with Super Mario Party on Nintendo Switch. Anyways, that's all I have to show for now. Thank you for watching, see you next time, and have a great day.